What's something you've done that you'd never admit to in real life? I had an uncle who was seriously addicted to drugs. He was constantly in and out of jail, like it was just part of his routine. Every time he got released, everyone hoped maybe this time would be different. It never was. Then one day, he started talking about robbing my grandma's house. Not joking, actually planning it. That's when something in me snapped. I knew if I didn't do something, he might actually go through with it. So I came up with a plan. I told him I had this one-time job offer about 6 hours away and asked if he wanted to ride along. He agreed. We drove the whole way, 6 hours. Just normal conversation, like nothing was wrong. When we stopped at a gas station, I handed him $50 and said, "Grab some snacks for the road." The second he walked inside, I got back in the car and left. I didn't look back. This happened years ago, so I'm not exactly worried about talking about it now. I was working at this small computer repair shop. Nothing fancy. Just a few employees, tight budget, normal day-to-day stuff, or so we thought. Then, one morning we found out the payroll account was empty, completely wiped. And guess what? Our boss had just bought himself a brand new BMW. That was the moment everyone realized we weren't getting paid. Most of the staff walked out immediately. I didn't blame them. But before I left, I stood there looking at the shelves full of brand new parts. Graphics cards, processors, motherboards, all just sitting there. And I thought, if I'm not getting my paycheck in cash, I'm getting it somehow. So I built myself a PC. Not right there on the counter, obviously, but I made sure I walked out with everything I needed. Was it more than my final paycheck would have been? Yeah, probably. But I figured the difference covered interest and inconvenience. Call it a settlement. I was about 8 years old on some family vacation. I don't even remember exactly where. There was this shallow puddle sitting on top of a rock formation, and inside it was a tiny tadpole. I don't know why, but I picked up a stick and hit it. Just like that, and the second I realized it stopped moving, it hit me. Instant regret. The kind that makes your stomach drop. My dad had died not long before that. I was still trying to understand what death even meant. And suddenly, I'd caused it, even if it was just a tiny, fragile little creature. That moment messed with me more than I can explain. It wasn't just guilt. It was this overwhelming realization that I had the power to end something's life. I'm almost 36 now, and I still think about that stupid puddle, that tiny tadpole. I'm sorry, little guy. Sometimes I wish it had been me instead. I used to work in a warehouse, filling orders. One shift, I was way in the back of this giant freezer section when out of nowhere my stomach completely turned on me. No warning, just instant nausea. I dropped what I was doing and ran for the nearest bathroom. I was layered up in all this cold weather gear trying to rip everything off in time. But I didn't make it. It was bad, like really bad. Embarrassed doesn't even begin to cover it. So I went to my supervisor and tried to explain what happened without spelling it out in detail. I figured he'd at least let me go home. Instead, he just looked at me and said, "Clean yourself up and get back to work." I tried again. Explained why that wasn't realistic. Same response, over and over. And then he added that I'd get attendance points if I left. That's when I just snapped. I took all the ruined clothes, shoved them in my locker, locked it with my personal padlock, and walked out. I never went back. To whoever eventually had to deal with that situation, I'm genuinely sorry. You didn't deserve that. But to my old supervisor, you absolutely did. I was 14 when this happened. My stepdad was a violent man. Living in that house always felt tense, like something could go wrong at any moment. One day my grandmother pulled me aside and told me we needed to do something to calm things down. She handed me the pills and told me to put them in his drink. I didn't fully understand the weight of it at the time. I just did what I was told. He drank it. And when I say he slept for 2.5 days, I mean he was completely out. When I was about 10, I used to sit next to this boy in class who, honestly, didn't have it easy. He always smelled kinda musty. His clothes looked unwashed. He had dandruff on his shoulders almost every day. And like clockwork, he'd bring the same boiled egg sandwich for lunch. Kids notice stuff like that. One day I had a bit of a stomach issue in class. I tried to hold it in, but I didn't succeed. It was silent, but not subtle. Within seconds, people started reacting. Faces scrunched up, whispers. And then someone assumed it was him, and everyone just went with it, including me. I even moved my chair away like the rest of them, pretending I was just another innocent victim of the smell. But he looked at me, and I knew he knew. And he knew I knew. I never said anything, never corrected anyone, never apologized. About 20 years ago, I told my grandmother I needed $300 for an abortion. It wasn't true. I was addicted to heroin and needed the money for that. She gave it to me without questioning it. At the time, I was deep in addiction and lied without thinking about the damage. It felt like survival. I've been clean for 2 years now, and that lie still weighs on me. I think about the trust she showed me, and I know she deserved better than what I gave her. I don't think I'll ever fully forgive myself for that. Before I left my last job, I wiped the hard drive on my work desktop. Every tool, spreadsheet, database, and internal guide tied to that role, gone. For context, I built most of it myself. I designed the processes, automated workflows that used to take hours, and pushed efficiency from around 13% to nearly 98%. I even created the training framework and system documentation for the entire department. A lot of it done on my own time because management thought it was a waste. When promotion time came, they didn't give it to me. Instead, they hired someone new and told me I'd be training them. That was the moment I decided I was done. I removed everything I'd personally created, handed in my notice, and walked out. Less than 3 months later, the department collapsed. No one understood the systems. There were no backups, no documentation they could actually use. Call it corporate sabotage if you want. When I was 18, I was basically a well-paid boy toy, about $10,000 a week. Free in-law suite, utilities covered, groceries covered, the whole setup. She made the offer because I couldn't commit to a relationship at the time. I had too much stress in my life, and she didn't want to lose me. She was lonely, and I guess I filled that space for her. The only real expectation was daily sex or cuddling. I had zero issues with that. She was sexy as hell and knew exactly what she was doing. Honestly, I wasn't suffering. But if I'm being real, the biggest reason I said yes was to get out of my parents' house. It was toxic, and this felt like an escape. Over time, though, I started to realize I probably took advantage of her loneliness. That part has always sat weird with me. But here's the twist. Once my stress settled down and we actually got to know each other on a deeper level, it stopped feeling like an arrangement. It turned into something real. No joke. We ended up in a genuinely loving relationship. When I was a kid, I used to torture ants. I'd slowly pull their legs off until they barely looked like ants anymore. I'd bury them alive. Sometimes I'd tear their heads off and even pull out their insides. And the worst part? I enjoyed it. Looking back, I can see that I was doing it constantly, almost obsessively. I think it had a lot to do with what was going on at home. My parents were always fighting. My dad was an alcoholic who kept getting into debt. My mom was a narcissist who yelled at me and insulted me all the time. The house never felt safe or stable. Hurting insects became some kind of coping mechanism for me. It was twisted, but it was the only place where I felt like I had control over something. I don't really believe in objective good or evil. I don't believe in free will either. I think we're shaped by circumstances more than we like to admit. So in my mind, there was a reason behind what I was doing. That said, I understand that for most people, torturing insects crosses a moral line. I had a 6-month affair with a married woman. We were living under the same roof at the time. Her marriage was already falling apart, and being with me helped her get through that phase. Still, that doesn't make it any less questionable. Looking back now, 10 years later, I know I'd make a different choice today. I found a wallet on the ground once and took the cash out of it, about $100. After that, I dropped the wallet off at the post office so it could be mailed back to the address inside. It had IDs, credit cards, even a social security card. Honestly, I don't feel that bad about taking the money. Cash can always be earned again. There was a time when I had planned to end my life and leave behind the person who loves me more than anyone else. My wife. Back then, it felt like the only way out. I picked a date, I wrote notes, I even wrote poems for her to read after I was gone. Now, it's hard to believe I was ever in that headspace. I can barely relate to that version of myself, but at the time, I was drowning. Chronic pain, constant stress, depression. On top of that, the pressure of another year of college and starting a new job. It all felt unbearable. I never told my wife how close I came. She knows I was struggling. She knows I'm better now. But I don't think she understands just how dark it got. I'm certain that without her, I wouldn't still be here. I love her more than I can explain. My sister-in-law left her turtles at our place. Years went by. I did what I could for them, but realistically, our apartment wasn't the right environment for turtles. It wasn't ideal. Eventually, one of them got sick, and I mean really sick. She stopped eating, barely moved. I felt terrible about it, but I couldn't justify spending thousands of dollars on medical care for someone else's pet. So I told my husband she had died. I put her in a box, took her to a nearby stream, and let her go in the water. I stood there watching her drift with the current and started crying. Then I went to work. Best case scenario, she died not long after. Worst case, I introduced a non-native species into the local ecosystem. When I was 13, I shot the neighbor's dog after it bit my little sister. Thankfully, the dog didn't have rabies. But even knowing that now, I still remember how it felt in that moment. I don't enjoy hurting animals. That's never been who I am. But when that dog attacked my sister, who hadn't done anything to provoke it, something in me flipped. It felt like a line had been crossed, like someone had disrespected my family. No one gets to hurt my little sister. Looking back, I know it was extreme. I know it wasn't the only possible response. But at 13, all I felt was anger and the need to protect. For context, I grew up in a Latino household where handling firearms safely is taught at a young age. Thank you very much for watching. Drop your secret in the comments. No judgment. And don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.